Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm not going to make this intro too long. Today is about, actually, one second. Alright, let's try this again. The video is all about this little guy. This is the Z mount, the Nikon 2X converter. So it goes on this guy right here, the 70 to 200, and I am getting eaten up by mosquitoes. I'm in this idyllic setting out hunting wildlife. This is just a first impressions video. This is not a review. I just got this today and wanted to come out and try it out and see what kind of images I could capture. Unfortunately, couldn't get any exotic wildlife, but I have been able to get a lot of geese, a few ducks. I don't know how those turned out. What I wanted to kind of do is put out some comparison images and see what you guys thought, to see if you could see any kind of image degradation in the photography, the images, using this guy. So obviously on a 70 to 200, the f2.8, God, I'm getting eaten alive. And I'm going to end this video right here because I am going to end up getting eaten alive. I may lose a pike. I'm going to pop on the computer here in a bit. I think I've been able to capture a few little images that are quite nice, but we'll go from there. All right, guys, we'll see you in a bit. Okay, we are back and ready to get on the computer, but I did want to kind of start out this phase of the video, if you will, and talk a little bit about kind of my first impressions before I actually get on the computer, start showing the images for those of you who like to get the answer up front without having to wait till the end of the video. So, should you buy this guy? Let's talk about that first, this 2X teleconverter. My answer is yes, but with a caveat. And that caveat is, if you already own this, the 70 to 200, which is a phenomenal lens, and if you haven't seen, I'll post a few little links here to some of the videos where I've kind of featured this lens. It is so good. But if you don't already own this lens, and you're not planning on buying this lens, then right now the teleconverter is not for you, because this teleconverter, the new Z mount 2X teleconverter, only works on the 70 to 200 f2.8. Something to keep in mind. Now I know that there's been a fair amount of debate online for some reason about the fact that this only works on the 70 to 200 f2.8. In my mind, I don't know what other lens that's currently been released in the Z mount series that you would want to use a 2X converter on. And for those who don't know, who are kind of maybe new to photography, 2X converter is simply doubling the length of your lens. So from a 70 to 200, you go to a 140 to a 400 lens essentially, but it also doubles your maximum aperture. So on an f2.8 lens, the 70-200 here, on this guy, you go from 2.8 as your maximum aperture to 5.6. So something to keep in mind. If you are a wildlife photographer and you are planning on acquiring the 100 to 400 that's about to come out, then I think, and you're not planning on getting the 70 to 200, no need to get this, unless of course it might work on the 100 to 400 or the 200 to 600 that is about to come out. I don't know that yet, and nobody knows that yet. But if you're just planning on going straight to the 100 to 400, probably don't need to acquire this. My guess is this probably will work on those lenses, but I don't know that yet. If your main focus is wildlife, and you're not planning on acquiring the 70 to 200, and you don't want to wait to find out if this is even going to work on those other lenses, I wouldn't buy this for now. We will get on the computer. The idea when I was taking these images was to kind of show you what it looks like between shooting at 200 millimeters and shooting at 400 millimeters using the teleconverter. If you're okay with looking at images of geese, trying to compare the visual imagery there, then great, please stick around. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on those images. None of them are world class. It was right after I got this, and so like I said, this is first impressions. If you would like to see that, stick around. We'll hop on the computer and I'll show you kind of the differences between the 200 and shooting with the teleconverter at 400 millimeters. So let's hop on the computer and see what you think. Okay, we are on the computer. I am just going to pop into Lightroom. I did want to point out a few things, and what I wanted to do is, like I mentioned in kind of the intro, after the intro, is to kind of look at the differences between 200 millimeter images and those images that were shot at 400 millimeters with the 2X converter. Let's just kind of touch upon kind of the images that I think are the better images. So we'll start with those first. I've culled all these images. Now you see I've got an image up here, and I'm I'm showing kind of was shot at 400 millimeters. Got little baby chicks here, and you see that that was shot. You see that there's no editing whatsoever done to this particular image, right? And you see the white balance. You should see the same across all images. So you see this is at 400 millimeters. This is at ISO 640, and this was shot at the maximum aperture using teleconverter at f5.6. Decent image, not unbelievably captured, but I think an okay image. So let's take a look at another one. This one here I think was particularly good. This is also using the teleconverter, and you can see up here in the right hand corner, 400 millimeters at ISO 640 at the maximum aperture using the teleconverter at f5.6, and this was shot at 1/125th of a second. I think a pretty decent image. If I were to kind of zoom in to 100, you'll see that the details, sorry, that's at 200. If I zoom in at 100, you'll see that the details of the goose, pretty good, not bad, but not crystal clear. Now I attribute some of these things to a little bit of operator error. I'm trying to get used to using an image or looking through the viewfinder at 400 millimeters is a little bit more difficult than shooting at 200 millimeters because of the fact that they're just it's so focused, of course, right? And so sometimes it's a little difficult to kind of see what you're looking at, and especially with a moving object, to try to follow that. So I attribute that to me. That has nothing, in my opinion, to do with the 2x converter. So, and I'm gonna take maybe, let's take this one here. This is at 200 millimeters. And I feel like the details are a little bit better, a little bit crisper, but I don't know if that's the lighting. I don't know if that's the fact that I shot this at look at maybe this one. This is also shot at 200 millimeters. Look at the detail in the grass, quite lovely. Contrast here, compare that to this image here, also at 200 millimeters. Not a bad image as well, but nothing to write home about, in my opinion. This is about the only image that I thought at 200 millimeters pre-teleconverter was pretty decent. The only one that I kind of ranked as 4, maybe. Actually, that's not true. This one, let's zoom in. You can see the details in the eyes there. That's at 100%. Let's zoom in at 200%. Still about the same level of clarity, in my opinion, compared to the 2x converter or at 400 millimeters. So that is, like I said, the one that we were just looking at earlier. Little baby chicks. This one's also I loved. If you look at the details and the chicks here in the foreground, very detailed. That's at 400 millimeters. Loved that particular image. You see that was shot at also at f5.6 and ISO 640. This one here with the chicks kind of trailing behind. But yeah, I thought this one was quite nice, especially this little guy here in the back at the end of the train, so to speak. And I thought this one was quite nice as well. Pretty good image at 400 millimeters. And this one was probably one of my favorites at 400 millimeters. Also at f5.6, also at ISO 640. You'll see that I shot that also at 1/125th of a second. So let's move over here to another image that I thought was pretty decent that I ranked as kind of a 4, also at 400 millimeters. This one was shot at f8, so a little bit greater depth of field. Notice the details in the feathers and things like that. Pretty impressive, I think, using a teleconverter. I'm not seeing a lot of drop off in detail when looking at these images. Here's another one, thought was pretty decent. Also ranked this as a 4, well, in my internal rankings, meaning that it was passable. It's not amazing, but it's a decent image. Like I said, the details, I think even when we zoom in, you can see that the sharpness is quite there. Also at 400 millimeters using the teleconverter. Another pretty decent image at 400 millimeters. This one I ranked as a 3, but still, if you look at the clarity, I'm not seeing a lot of drop off. Another one pretty good here. I like this one. Like I said, not a world-class image, but I thought it was kind of cute to see the little baby chicks with their heads together trying to pick up rocks or grass or whatever on the ground there. Let's take a couple more. Take a look at a couple more at 200 millimeters. Pretty good detail there. Beautiful detail, I think, with those guys. This one is kind of an interesting image. I like the fact that all the little chicks were kind of doing little sleepy heads there. Also at 200 millimeters. This one was shot at f6.3. This one I thought was a pretty decent image. This one was also shot at 400 millimeters, f5.6. Probably a little bit greater depth of field would have been better in this particular image, but it was getting a little bit later in the day. So you see that I shot that at ISO 800 as opposed to 640. But I really like the fact that all the little chicks were kind of grouped up together. If you look at the level of detail in this image though, I'm not seeing a lot of drop off going from the 200 to the 400 using the teleconverter. Another image here that I quite like actually at 400 millimeters. Look at the level of detail, the contrast, the colors, all beautiful. Just not seeing a lot of drop off using that 2x converter. So that's just my first impressions. I'm going to produce a few more videos here for those people who like this kind of thing. Please let me know in the comments if there's anything that you would like to see. And we will go from there in the next video. Have a great day. Talk to you soon.